welcome back to another episode of the Queer Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Conklin. And just as a reminder, before we get started today, three pillars, always the same three pillars, always things that we talk about in these interviews. And I'm always amazed at how things just sort of manage to go there. So three pillars: inclusion, community, and growth. And I know for a fact that we're going to talk about probably all of those, but definitely a couple of those today with my guests. I'm really, really honored to have Josh Driver on with me. And it's going to be his topic is going to be a little different and something that I'm not good at. So this is going to be an amazing conversation. So Josh, tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hey, first of all, thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Josh Driver. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Selflessly. We're an Indianapolis-based tech company that manages corporate philanthropy for businesses. And so our system allows a company to have a workplace giving program, volunteer time off and manage that, and then also the ability to donate money, grants, products, services, anything a company can give back and invest into the community can be managed by our system. We report on it, and then the company can create their impact report each year about all the great, cool things they do. So we love it.
Yeah. So talk about, I'm just curious about like your tech background. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I got into it, originally was going to school for, planning on being a doctor. So getting ready for medical school, and always loved having the newest phone and tech stuff, and got involved in nonprofits and realized that nonprofits are generally the last people to get technology. A lot of times it's repurposed sales software and really not what a nonprofit needs, I guess. And so I started my first tech company back in 2008 that was focused on tracking direct mail fundraising back in the day and shifting them to online donations. And so that company took off. And so we, every company that I've been involved in is really focused on getting new technology out to nonprofits. And so more so, how do we use tech to solve problems that we can't solve in the manual processes. And so created several companies focused on that, took some time, and brought some new exciting technology into the public sector, and then realized that companies have the momentum, the energy, and their employees want to get out and start doing more. They just don't have a mechanism to be able to arrange that, handle the logistics, and distribute the resources. And so that's where I jumped back into startups and wanted to build a technology that makes it easier.
So why the philanthropic with the technology? Where does that sort of combination come in for you?
I think I grew up volunteering. My parents, both very philanthropic people, always wildly successful entrepreneurs themselves, but always gave back. So I'm a little hardwired to be looking for a philanthropic element into everything I do. But I just feel like there's so many great nonprofits doing so many things and are needed more than ever. And so why not design more technology that helps them? So that's just, I kind of like that. It's I don't know if empath is a way to code, but I like to integrate that empathic vibe into
what I find interesting about it is that it's, doing it, especially for nonprofits, it's almost like the give back to the give back, right? It's that piece of, it's like an automatic giving piece for you.
It is. It's definitely more of a passion project. When I was in the public sector, we were building payment processing for the IRS and apps, to get your license plates. Not a lot of passion. I mean, glad as a person has to get license plates, it's very important to get it easier online. But there's this extra degree of where our output from our app is going to help people or animals or the environment. And I just think it keeps me very driven and motivated to be doing the right thing. So we can get more.
Well, and I think there's always there's always something new, right? I mean, there's always something new in tech, and there's always, new nonprofits and things that potentially you care about, or that, somebody that you care about cares about, to be, continuing to sort of build the business and move forward from that perspective too, right?
Yeah, philanthropy is changing. For years, I don't know if you've ever worked at a company where you sign up for payroll deduction and United Way kind of handles it. You check your box and move on. And that was great for years, but there's a lot of transparency out there about nonprofits. There's a big movement away from the large organizations towards the hyperlocal grassroots ones. And people just want to get more involved, and they want to have more control on how they make impact, which is a double-edged sword. That's a hard thing for nonprofits sometimes to wrap their head around, because that means more transparency on their side. They have to do more work. And the little organizations don't necessarily have the capacity of a big brand behind them to help, drive that along. And so part of what we aim to do is give a voice to any nonprofit, of course, but really kind of help take some time off of that executive director's desk, and let's just get you in front of a motivated workforce that has benefits to spend, versus you having to send multiple emails and have to figure out a LinkedIn strategy or whatever. Like, focus on your mission. We'll connect the companies to you on your behalf. And so I like it. I like doing that.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. So do you work with any nonprofit, or do you have a slant toward LGBT, or is it just anybody?
So big fan of diversity and inclusion personally, but with that also means diversity and inclusion of nonprofits as well. So of course my heart tends to personally go towards LGBTQ nonprofits always, but also understanding too that cancer is an issue. Dogs in shelters, and there's a lot of other issues that I care about in addition to that. We do a lot of trying to link nonprofits of different missions together. Just because I'm a member of the LGBTQ family doesn't mean I don't care about dogs and want to have every dog in the state of Indiana living under my roof. But so I think that there's real value too in partnership for nonprofits to be able to combine power. Our Pride here in Indianapolis has a Pet Pride Day as a part of their week of events. So why not have that overlap? Because we do fall into different buckets too from the charitable sector. So it's a good thing for everybody to win. But yeah, we have no preference over one nonprofit or the other. We really have our employee users. We really want to motivate them to go and work at the organizations they care about, make the impact for the causes that they care about. Who am I to say that dogs are more or less important than the environment? Like, it depends who you ask, but there's no right answer there. So like, if you want to be planting trees, if you want to be giving meals to the homeless, anything is great, and we support that.
Very cool. So are you guys predominantly doing like developing apps and those sorts of things, or are we talking like bigger, like software, tech, writing code, all that stuff that, goes way over my head and smacks me in the back?
If I wasn't 6'4", it'd go over my head too. So we have a software platform that's web-based that companies pay to use. Their employees get access to it. So they have the opportunity that you can donate to any of the 1.7 million nonprofits in the US, or volunteer across over 80,000 volunteer opportunities in the US. Of course, right now with the pandemic, everyone's doing everything virtually. So we spend a lot of our time creating new, cool virtual volunteer opportunities for people to do from home. Of course, we still have, the food pantries and things that you have to be in person, and we let people make that choice. But right now, until we can really kick these numbers out on the pandemic, we're leaning a little bit more to the virtual side. We just give all the tools that an employee would need to be able to go and volunteer in an inclusive way. Our app has pronouns throughout it. We require everybody to use pronouns. so that our app is respectful in how we address people, but also too, for those who may not necessarily be as understanding as others. We find that being able to integrate things like pronoun and ADA accessibility and religious accommodations for people, that if they see it in practice, it opens up a conversation. So we always provide links to learn more about why we add this feature in, because we do want people to maybe take that time to learn more about what pronouns mean, why it's important, and understand the opportunity and what a big deal it is. So with that, we're looking forward to Pride Month this year. We'll be putting in a bunch of LGBTQ education into our app, and really trying to get people at their desks to take a moment and dip their toe in and understand a little bit more about our community, because we feel like it's important.
I love the fact that you said, like, for example, when you were talking about the pronouns, that it's about respecting people, right? As opposed to, I think part of what's happening in the world today, and I certainly see on Facebook, is people feel like, this pronoun thing is being like crammed down their throat. And why can't people just blah, 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 blah. But the way you put it, I was like, wow, that's a different way to phrase that, so that it doesn't feel like, well, it's about me having to accept you. It's about this piece of being respectful to everybody.
It's interesting, and in full disclosure, I'm an only child, so I just feel like everything I feel is what everyone else should feel. But but for me, we're in the middle of Indiana. Indiana is not exactly known for knocking it out of the park when we talk about diversity and inclusion, right? And so part of where I have found success in the past is to use pronouns in practice, adding it to all of my staff have the signatures, and adding that in, because if I go to a diversity training, and I've felt this in speaking with other CEOs and employees in the community, you're getting the lecture about diversity and inclusion. You're getting like this is good, you need to do it this way. And not that there isn't a place for that, and I'm 100% behind it, but I'd like to move from tolerance to understanding. And so I'm not, when you use our platform, it doesn't pop up a window and you have to listen to me rant if you're not using pronoun or get your act together. It's more so, here it is in practice. This is how our app works. And we're going to address people using the pronouns that they feel most comfortable with. And we would love it if you would click this link over to the Trevor Project or GLAD to learn more about the meaning behind them. But jump in, use your pronoun. It's cool, and kind of that's my utopian hope, is that hopefully maybe helps change some people and maybe take a second to learn when they can, versus having to sit down in a structured environment and not be forced, but they have to participate. Whereas here's maybe a passive way that hopefully they'll get to where we need them to be.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that you do it with things other than just pronouns, right? I mean, you said religion, you said a couple other things, and I think the fact that you acknowledge that piece, to me, even makes the diversity and inclusion even a bigger, expansive thing that you're dealing with and that you're including, and saying, hey, we respect all of these things.
We do. We have so many employees and people in our system. And one of the things that we really try to do, that we have found when we started this app, is that a company will set up an opportunity to go build a house with Habitat for Humanity, which is amazing. But if you have somebody that's in a wheelchair, or if you have somebody that has ambulation disadvantages, that's no fun. Like, nobody wants to turn down a volunteer opportunity because they can't participate. So we try to filter out that stuff, and we really try to get our companies, the leaders within the company, to think about that. So same with religious accommodation. what food can they touch, can they not? If somebody's in religious clothing, what are we? Should they be outside when it's warm? These are the kinds of things that most likely a lot of people don't think about, but can be really disrupting to an employee if they can't participate in something good because of a limitation for whatever reason. So we work really hard to try to eliminate that barrier, and then also work with nonprofits too to be able to open up volunteer opportunities that are a little bit more inclusive as much as possible. Obviously, you can only do so much when you're building a house.
Right.
How do we get around that? How can we provide something for them to do at the house or near the house that they can participate in? So we'll get there, but this one's a longer term goal over time.
Sure.
So,
it's amazing. It's just so funny. We all have our focuses, and we all have our channels, and we all have our areas. And I was just sitting here thinking, wow, all the things that you had to think about, right? Like even outside probably your scope of what might be normal or what you would normally think about, right? In order to write a program and to have technology that does something that's way more inclusive than probably anything that we have in our world, right? Of humans today. So where does that thought process come for you? I mean, obviously it's important because garbage in, garbage out. I do know that much about technology.
So to be honest, it's because I've made the mistakes myself. When I was at my previous company, we scheduled a volunteer opportunity for the group, and my participation was so low. And so as the manager at that time, you have one of two options. Either one, I have a bunch of selfish sociopaths that work under me, or I didn't do something right. And so when our participation was low, I went to my employees and said, why don't you want to do this? Like, why do you hate the environment? Because we were doing a park cleanup day. In one case, we had a software developer that was just like, I've got really bad asthma. I can't be out in a park like that, and it's rough for me. Another person allergic to bees. Another person didn't feel comfortable. I just don't like to be out in the humid weather. And so thinking through some of that, I learned it the hard way, quite frankly, is that I wasn't thinking about my employees, which drove me to build Selflessly. And I think too, I'm part of the LGBTQ community here, and I've had a relatively privileged life. I'm still a white male. And for me, wanting to be diverse and inclusive, I listen to a ton of podcasts and stories about people from other walks of life that have had struggles. And so when I hear that, then I want to put something into the app to work on that or make it more accommodating based on what I've learned.
Isn't it amazing how far we can get in life just from listening?
Imagine that. What if we could?
But I mean, really listening, because you could listen and hear that and not take action on it, which in my way of thinking, you didn't really listen, right? You heard it, but you didn't really listen to it. But this piece of, you heard it and you listened and you took an action that made something better. I mean, isn't that what life is about? Isn't that what being a business owner is supposed to be about?
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think too, Selflessly was born out of frustration of some of this, the LinkedIn manifesto of Black Lives Matter. And I put this out as a CEO for February, and then I move on. So what are you going to do next? Like, all right, great, there's a problem here. So you as a CEO with unlimited resources or talents, like what's next? How is your company going to participate? And so I really like to follow how brands do follow up or not follow up on that post, just changing the color of the logo, because I do think that it deserves more than just a change. And so we do interject that into our app, so you can be philanthropic and help Black Lives Matter and help the LGBTQ community. by donating money or volunteering or sponsoring something that's very important to that community. So, so yeah, we want more companies to do more than just post something. Let's
right. Or celebrate it, or celebrate something for, as you said, for 1 month, right? Black Lives Matter, Black History Month is February. And so let's move on. Now we're in Women's History Month. Now we're in Pride Month. So let's do the one thing that we have to do for each month or whatever it is, right? To celebrate this thing. And then let's go back to our regular business as usual, where we're not, use Black History Month, right? You see the picture of, 12 white guys sitting in a room, all between the ages of 40 and 55, talking about diversity and inclusion. It's like, really? Where's your diversity and inclusion there, kind of thing. So
yes. Oh yeah, we in Indiana I've watched several diversity inclusion panels with no diversity and inclusion. So it's laugh about it, but I think that we make the transition too. Black History Month ends, and we're promoting a lot of Women's History Month organizations, and so to your point, we have to keep those conversations going. So we do group nonprofits that work on the issues affecting the African American community and issues that are affecting women in the workplace, issues that barriers that exist for women. We bring those nonprofits to the forefront during their month, but still leave that stuff in our system coordinated under those categories, because it doesn't end at the end of February or March. Like this is still going on.
Calendar changes, and all of a sudden life is
right. Oh yeah, everything's fine now. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's not.
Right. Not the case. Not the case. So I think I heard you say that you have 1.7 million nonprofits inside of your software and your app.
Yeah, so we don't force nonprofits to use our system because they're busy, limited budgets. So we pull the IRS's database of all 501c3s and put that into our system, because we just need the information from the IRS to be able to process a donation to them. So, and we don't like the idea of the only way you can donate to a nonprofit is if they are signed up to use our system, because that's exclusive. So in the interest of inclusivity, you can donate to any nonprofit as long as they haven't been flagged as a hate group or involved in an insurrection or something. But we know that our employees have certain nonprofits that they want to donate to, and we shouldn't force a nonprofit to use our system to do that. Selflessly, we're a for-profit company. We're a certified B Corp, which is really cool, but we don't take any percentage of that donation as a for-profit company. That money should be going to the nonprofit. So while our investors sometimes would like us to to maybe consider it on principle, we don't. And so we want to give people that choice from that perspective. So yeah, we don't pump in anything that's like a pay-to-play where the big organizations get maybe some type of like gold star because they paid for the next level up, and people are smart enough. They know what nonprofits they want to donate to, and so we should allow them to do that.
So from a business perspective, Josh, how are you monetizing that app and software then?
Yep. So the charge goes to the company that signs up to use our service. We have tiered pricing based on the number of employees in the system. We're actually looking at some different pricing models too, where it's just a recurring monthly fee. You can pay annually or month to month. Most of our companies do an annual software license, and that's unlimited. There's no, we don't modularize the app. You get everything up front, because we know that participation increases if an employee has the ability to donate, to volunteer, to join group activities. So for people to pay more so that they can increase participation hurts the nonprofit in the long run. So we're an all-in-one platform. So we typically work with the HR department or the C-suite and to help them kind of design how they want their philanthropic strategy to work throughout the year. And then we just do some minor configurations to it to set up their program. And then they're off to the races, and maybe sometime they'll call us and check in, but most don't, which makes me sad as an only child. but yeah, and so and then we help design days of service and giving campaigns and stuff too, in addition to the platform if a company needs it, but not required.
Very cool. What's your biggest challenge as either as a business owner in general, or as a gay man who owns a business?
I would say that I'm a little too alpha to know if somebody is not using our platform or doesn't spend time with us because I'm a gay man. I've gotten to the point now where if that's a hesitation for you, then we're not going to have a lot to talk about in general. But I would say, our initial challenge, we launched this platform at the beginning of 2020. And 2020 being such a boring year, nothing happened. What a perfect time to launch a tech company.
Right.
But a lot of the data and ways that we track app engagement, get user feedback, and work really was thrown out the window, because for the first few months of our app launch, most of our companies were trying to figure out where employees were going to work. So,
or if they were going to be in business at all in a year.
True. So that was a challenge. That was a challenge for 2020. We made the best of it. We did grow, so that's good. I would say moving forward, how can we be innovative? People are concerned about the economy, about everything going on in the world. So nonprofits, we saw a big capital infusion towards nonprofits in 2020, but I'm concerned that we're going to have to see how we're going to keep that momentum going in 2021 when people are uncertain or have depleted resources internally. So I would say the biggest challenge is how do we step up to the responsibility to make sure that philanthropy, whether it's financial or board participation or volunteering, still continues to happen in 2021. And so we're following that closely. But also, from a business perspective, how do we make sure that there's budget on the company side to still have these types of benefits available? It's not for a lack of employees wanting to do it, but making sure that there's some budget on the company side. So we're fortunate to be a very low cost provider. Our smallest company that uses the platform is a 2-person quilting store. We have companies that are hundreds and maybe 1,000-person one now. So we are affordable, and we tend to we really like to focus on the 1,000 employees or less when we can. But those will be our challenges. But I do find it, from my perception, at being a gay man and LGBTQ entrepreneur, I find it to be less of a challenge, or I'm not observant enough to know when it's because I'm a gay man that they're turning us down, which is probably for the best, because I'd rather not know.
Well, I think it's interesting if you just go about and do your business, right? And you just do your thing and you are who you are, the right people are attracted. This is the first thing that I've done that's been sort of leading with, it's pretty obvious if you see something that's queer profits, this is the first thing in 30 years that I've done, that's been that. And, kind of like you, right? I just go do my thing, and I am who I am, and I don't hide it, and I don't lead with it. But, if you want this, here it is, kind of thing. And yeah. I think there's a strength and a confidence in just being who you are, and in doing what you do, and being good at what you do. And when that happens, I think people have a tendency to want to do business with you, the person with you, the business with what you represent and how you do things, as opposed to who you sleep with, right? I mean,
I'm married, so maybe not. I love you, Jeff. Well, I think too, I check, like I had said earlier, I check one box. I'm still a white male. And so it's probably also easier to deal with me, because when I get on a Zoom call, I'm not a person of color, or I'm not somebody that may be transitioning. So I think I have a lot of privilege there that I think other founders unfortunately don't.
Sure. Yep.
So it's a little bit easier. It's much easier for me to assimilate's not the right word, but I would imagine that people who would be concerned about these issues for themselves can probably talk to me more than they might other groups.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my philosophy has always been and will always be, even that I'm doing this now is, if the fact that you go on my Facebook page and you now see something that says Queer Profits, and that's the reason you're not going to do business with me, well, guess what? I don't want to do business with you anyway. And there have been at least once, and I think there's one happening now. Look, I've been in business for 30 years, and I know of one instance where I was turned down for something specifically because, and it was covert, right? I mean, the word that got used was lifestyle, and I'm like, okay, and I think there's a situation now where I was told I'm one of the top 5, and we'll get back to you next week. And it's been a couple of weeks, and I've reached out, and I'm like, okay, you've been on the LinkedIn profile, you see that this new thing is happening, and okay, but just respond. I mean, it's okay to say we've gone a different direction or whatever, but it's that piece of when you don't hear back, when they were so positive of, yeah, you're definitely one of the top 5, it's that piece of, okay, you're lost, kind of thing. But I think it takes a while, to get to that point.
We had an investor group that turned us down because we're a member of the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. We're a certified LGBTQBE, and we had one investor group that turned us down. We've had a company request that we remove pronoun from the app. So we've had some of that and heard the lifestyle thing. And to your point, like once I hear like the lifestyle comment, I'm like, I'm not sure how to respond to that. So yeah. But to your point, like I don't think I'd really want to spend a ton of time with these people either.
Yeah.
And conversely, sometimes maybe it does help to identify that up front so we don't have any scope creep in the future.
Well, but the flip side of that is that there are companies and people coming to you specifically because that is a piece, right? And they want to support and they want to have that. Initially, I don't think you're going to get business, because of it necessarily, but I think there sometimes is that draw of, oh, here's a company that we want to support because they are a BE or because they are women owned or because they are whatever the thing is. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either.
I don't either. We've been really happy with working with the NGLCC and getting the opportunity to talk to large companies that may not have recognized us otherwise. But to your point, like we still have to deliver good software, whether
Right.
I'm gay or not. So, right. Leaking data doesn't matter what your sexual orientation or gender
Right.
identity is. Data leaks a data leak. So
right. There is that piece. You have to do what you're supposed to do, regardless, right?
Yeah,
Goodness.
definitely take that responsibility as well.
Yeah. So Josh, what's the best business advice either that you've ever gotten or that you'd like to sort of leave people with?
I would say the best thing is I would say it's twofold. One, leave your ego at the door. I think that it's easy to have success and fall into the opportunity to say like I know everything about everything, and the buck stops here, or whatever. But I firmly believe, and our company is living proof of this, it takes a village to start a company. And whether that's your customers, your investors, your mentors, your advisors, your friends, your family, your dog, it does take a village. And we wouldn't be where we are today without the hundreds of people that have given us introductions, let me cry over Zoom or at coffee about whatever problem we're having, believed in us to give us money. So I may be the majority owner in this company. I don't even know if I'm the majority owner in this company anymore, to be honest. But I think I am. But this company would not be where we are today. We just acquired a company last week, and it's honestly because of the groups that I'm involved in, the people that are in my network, and people that wanted to help. And so I think if especially in the LGBT community, if you're looking to start a company, I found you through a Facebook group.
Yep.
And so like being attentive, joining that stuff, sharing your struggles, being open to getting advice from other people, I think is the best thing you could do for your business and really your career. That's not just limited to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's the truth. Very wise words. Where do you think are sort of the big issues that the queer community needs to be sort of focused in on, and where do you think we're headed, as we move forward?
I think from my perspective is that we need to make sure that our transgender folks are getting the support from our community that they need to. Our people of color within our community are getting the support from us that they need to. I think we've seen in legislation and bathroom bills where we're willing to give up bathroom bills for hate crime legislation. And really, these are the people that are targeted much more than people that look like you and I. Yeah. And so we can't leave people behind as a community. And that's something that is concerning because I see that happening. But I think we've come a long way. We have a lot of work still to do. And with tolerance and acceptance happening, we're losing a lot of our LGBTQ spaces where we used to go because that was the only place we could go. So making sure that we have that history of where we came from and honor that. But I would say that I think our community needs to continue to support each other and be able to volunteer or mentor or spend that time that's needed for our queer youth, for people that may have not had as great of a journey as perhaps I have, and reserving that time to be a foundation for the next generations or those that are struggling right now. So yeah, I feel definitely the election helped me feel a little bit better about our future. But I think internally we need to connect some dots within our own community, and hopefully there will be more of that happening.
Yeah, the inclusion piece. It's interesting. As many times as I've asked that question now, that this inclusion piece comes up almost without fail to almost everybody. Not everybody, but a lot. And it's this piece of, we do have segments of sort of that, what I'll call that elitism, right, in our community, where it doesn't affect this particular piece of the alphabet, and so it's easy to turn the head, as opposed to saying we're all one. How do we work on this? How do we make this better? How do we become more inclusive? How do we support one another, whether whichever alphabet you are, whichever religion you are, whichever skin color you have, whatever your background is, we're all in this together, kind of thing. And how do we how do we unify and show that sort of that oneness and that strength of, here we are as a community, and our here we are in numbers because we love and support each other.
I agree. And I think too, there's just a little bit of an evolution too. What pride meant to me in my early 20s is a little bit different now that I'm in my late 30s and married and tired. And to go out to a pride now is more of I got to take a few days off to be able to hang like that. But and I think that some of this evolution is good. I think it's good that we're adapting. But there's a little bit of history we need to leave, and so the disconnect between the youngest generations in our community and the oldest generations, there's got to be a happy medium there where we're honoring our history, but also supporting kind of the direction our community is going.
Yeah.
And I wish I had all the answers for that, but I don't. There's no technology. I don't think
You can't create an app for that? Come on, Josh. Come on, man.
List. Happy to talk through it though in a brainstorm session.
Right. But, I love the point that you just made about this piece of our youngest piece of our community and sort of the older, piece, which I'm probably, rapidly jumping into, and this piece of, pride means different things. And I think that we sometimes lose track, not only of the historical piece, but of, where are we now? Where are the younger activists? Where are those people who are out there? Not that they're not there, I'm not saying that, right? But it's this, and where's the gap between them? Where's this piece of that inclusion, right? Of how do we get the 20 somethings to work with the, the old fogies like me who are in, that upper 50 section, right? It's like, oh, well, you had your time, now it's our time. And yet I think there's so many lessons that can be learned by the younger generation from the older, and vice versa. I think there's this piece of, what can I learn from a 20 something, from a 30 something, who's in a different place in their business, who's in a different place in their life, and that, the struggle I think is different, right? It's that piece of not easier necessarily or harder, just different. I look back at in my 20s, there weren't, and certainly not in my teenage years, there weren't, you couldn't turn on the TV and see somebody like me, right? And now you do it every day. Now we see, kissing and in commercials, for crying out loud, and it's this piece of that progression and that change. And to your point, I think we have come a long way and we still have a long way to go. But I think sometimes we forget that there is this history and that there is a new history arising. And those two things can bridge. There's a bridge between those that can be there. It doesn't have to be this separatist, this elite, kind of thing.
It is interesting because it's not uncommon to have generational differences in general, no matter what your sexual orientation or gender identity. Right. I had a quarter, even recently, for my parents to say, you damn kids, your software, or you and your, I mean, it's not necessarily, but we're a minority community, and so this stuff can be a little bit more obvious at times. And I think that, to your point, both sides can learn a lot from each other, and kind of accept too that things have changed, I would say largely for the better. But I think it's mindful too for the younger generation, just as anybody else. You don't know what their history is. You don't know what they've gone through, being kicked out of their home, or fired, or kicked out of a restaurant. And so to be respectful of the challenges and scars maybe they've had through their life, that it's a good time to kind of reconnect, and the pandemic happens and no one can connect. So, I just hope that everyone is open to continuing the conversation and figuring out how to cross the bridge instead of on either side.
Yeah, and I love this piece of, you don't know what somebody else has been through. You don't know their history. You don't know what they're going through today. It's that piece of, I think if we can go into things with that more of an open heart, and that recognition, I think it makes the world a better place. I think it makes us all a little softer. And isn't it interesting that I'm probably the only one in the world who started a new relationship and is dating now exclusively during the pandemic. It is what it is, but it's funny because everybody's been talking about that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably the only one. So Josh, any last words you want to leave folks with, and then certainly give out your contact information, how people can get in touch with you and use the app if they have a business that they want to do that with.
Yeah, our website is selflessly.io. Check us out, ping the little chat bot, and you'll get in touch with one of the much smarter people here at the office than I, which is a good thing. And I'm Joshua Driver on all the socials when I get on. But one thing that I do personally is on Fridays, I have an office hour, and for either new entrepreneur or somebody that has a startup or something, and they need somebody to talk to about business or anything. And so if somebody wants to get a hold of me to schedule that office hour, Josh at selflessly.io is my email address, and I can send you a link to the calendar. But I like to spend at least an hour a week trying to help with something if I can. And so I would love to extend that to anybody who might need it. And plus it gets me an hour to stop thinking about my goat rodeo. And so it's just as helpful for me as it might be the other person, hopefully. So yes, if there's anything that I can do, I'd love to help.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time. This has been great and amazing. And we talked about all sorts of things as we always tend to do on the podcast, but I appreciate your time very much and your sharing and your wisdom and all of that. So just as a reminder, I'm your host of Queer Profits Podcast. I'm Diane Conklin. Check us out. There is a Facebook group of Queer Profits, which is all about business and growth and all that sort of thing. You can also find the Queer Profits Podcast on Facebook. We have our own website at queerprofitspodcast.com. You can check us out at any of the places that you're listening to. Always love your comments, your questions, your feedback. If you have a particular topic or you're a business owner would like to be interviewed, let us know that. And as always, you can go to queerprofits.com for the free report, which is the easy for me to say, 3 keys to growing your business fast, getting more clients, and making more money. So until next time, I hope you have an amazing day. Again, I'm Diane Conklin with Queer Profits Podcast, where we always stand for our 3 pillars: inclusion, community, and growth. Until next time, make it a great day.